Well, hello all. My name is Jay and welcome to my journey. This week was kind of a busy week and I kind of wanted to just share some of the thoughts I've had regarding identification or our identity, where we're kind of rooted in our beliefs and where we find connectivity with other people. Well, people say, relatability. I can't relate to that person or that group. Our egos have a tendency to separate us from each other. We don't see other people as connected to us. We do with our immediate family members. There's some kind of connection there, but there's also a connection with every human being in the universe, really. We're all formed and made out of the same stuff, so to speak. To quote Frank Zappa, we're made up of cosmic debris. I wanted to talk about it because more and more and more I find as I get older that people are withdrawing into an identification. In my life, I've had to overcome a lot of beliefs that I had because society has changed a lot. Even with your children going to school, they're exposed to a lot of things that perhaps you don't agree with, or things that weren't even topics or issues when you were growing up and being influenced in your sphere of influence and your environment and everything. The information with the social media, the world has become so small and there's instant communication with all these media information sources. And it can be overwhelming to a person, especially a person that is forming their identity. You might relate to something specifically that speaks within you. And as human beings, what we want to find comfort in groups, and we want to be connected to other people. There's a natural yearning to be connected to, what I would call God. Some people might not be of that faith base, but there is a higher power entity in the universe that connects us all. That, like I said, we were all made out of this same thing. And I think all human beings have the same emotions, emotional responses. This video may be cut up quite a bit. I'm not trying to get real heavy, just sharing some things that I went through this week. I had a lot of anxiety because I'm working on certain kinds of jobs in my business. It's a lot of, this one particular job is a ton of paperwork and contracts. They want too many things. They want me to be responsible for things that I have no control over. These are just like warning flags to me, and I get a lot of anxiety about it. and there was a deadline. There's like a push deadline to get things into this company and so on and so forth. As I was thinking about it, you know, when I get all twisted up sometimes in my head, I'm lucky enough to have at some point a deeper voice inside my head of reason, an objective voice that says, you know, this isn't even happened yet. It's not real, and the narrative you got running in your head about all of this is kind of negative sometimes. It's a little bit, it's powered by fear. But then I just say sometimes, you know, the best thing to do is just not do anything, and maybe it just works itself out. When a person really, really needs something, they'll let me know. We send out emails, we don't hear anything back, or we leave messages or text messages, and because of the world we live in. And I come from a time where I like to talk to people face to face or on the phone, but nowadays nobody wants to do that. They all want to read text messages or emails, and that's what I identify with. I identify with, you know, wanting to get related to other people on a personal level. There's something about the energy, there's inflection in our voices, and there's body language in communication. There's something there that is not, you can't really describe between people when you're having a conversation. You know, there's feelings that flow, a little bit of empath or something. I don't know exactly how to categorize it. There's a lot of things we don't understand as human beings, but we just accept that they're there, and we take them at the value that they're there, and we experience them. But we don't think about them very often. We just kind of go with it. I do anyway. But I've had to overcome in my life an awful lot of ideas that I had, rigid ideas, and practice acceptance of things that I didn't agree with necessarily. And you don't have to agree, but acceptance is a really powerful tool. If you just accept someone, if they're telling you about their belief systems, and I may not agree with what they're saying, I may not have very much in common with them, but I accept where they're at that moment and try to just experience that they're a human being just like me. I haven't had a perfect life. I've made a lot of mistakes. Like I said, thank God my channel is about starting over and the second chances, I call it, but it's more than second chances. I mean, it's like 150, a millionth chance or whatever that we get to get in life. And even though we're programmed a certain way and we're hardwired, so to speak, to be a certain personality or way of thinking, a way of being, we don't have to always react or behave based on that programming. We have the ability to transcend it, which I am so grateful for, because sometimes my wiring and my programming is not appropriate, and it's not nice, maybe, you know. So I appreciate every day. You know, I talked about a gratitude around Thanksgiving time. I still this morning got up and, you know, I have a litany of prayers that I say, certain types of prayers, which are, a lot of them are asking my God to do the will of the Creator rather than, you know, worried about my will, because my will is based on what's best for me, not always what's best for my fellow man or for somebody else. I think, you know, based on instinct and preservation. That's what the id is. They call it the id, the ego and the id. Well, the id is, you know, this primal instinct, and we react a lot of times impulsively on the things that happen to us out of fear. It's a self-preservation mechanism that is inbred in us. However, and if you think about it, ID, it's the first two letters in identity, and also the first two letters in ideal or idealism. A lot of that's not by coincidence. I mean, these are things that have formed over human language, and based in Latin, a lot of it. But the id, you know, that protection of self is really what that is. It's an impulse based on fear. Every impulse is pretty much based on fear for human beings. Every reaction, anger, sadness, all of it, when you think about it, it's fear when you boil it down to the root of everything. I'm not saying that I've got everything licked. I hope I don't come across as that I can practice all these things perfectly. I can't. I just have the knowledge that sometimes how I'm behaving might be based completely on something I'm identifying with, and digging in my heels and retreating into a safe spot because I don't like what I'm hearing, or I don't like what I'm seeing, or what's being presented. I don't agree with it factually. A lot of times I think people make up facts and they're not real, or they've heard this before, and when you investigate it, it's not exactly accurate. And the same thing with our feelings and our thoughts. Sometimes once we investigate them, we find out that they're not 100% accurate as well. I was going to look up the word identity.
Here's the definition of identity: the fact of being who or what a person or thing is.
Okay, that was the definition of identity. It's the fact or being of what a person is. Wow. How come we don't all have, how come we can't just get along? How come we all can't just get along if our identity is the fact of being of who and what we are? Well, because we're all pretty much the same. People are made up of the same stuff. And the only thing that's different is we have different environments, different influences from other people usually. We're not all born in a warm, safe, dry place as human beings. Our experience is different. What does that mean though? I mean, can I not still see what is the basic parts of another person and identify with them? Can I not identify with that sometimes that person is scared and reacting based on their id, their primal fears, and be understanding and maybe find a way to arrest those reactions or fears, a way to comfort them? Everything's going to be all right at this moment. Just practice acceptance of other people and their belief systems. Just accept that that's what they believe. You don't have to argue with it and tell them they're wrong all the time. If it's wrong and they're a reasonable person and they do any investigation, they'll find out what's true for them and what's wrong. But if they just want to dig in their heels and make other people wrong, you know, the whole basic thing about most human beings, and I told this to a guy one time and he always repeats it to me. He says it was probably the most profound thing I ever told him. And it was a contractor I was working with, and he was having a problem with a particular customer, I believe. And I told him, I said, you know, all that everybody wants, all that people want, is to be right. They just want to be right. And if they're going to be right, somebody else has to be wrong. And that would be the other, as they say in philosophy or whatever. The other is another person that we have to make wrong in order for us to be right. I don't particularly like that. I have done it, just like everybody has. We've all done it. Made other people wrong to justify our position or what we said. You know, a lot of times I think, here's a good test. When I have to justify something that I told a person or said in the heat of a moment, it might have been out of anger, and it might have been something that was intended to hurt somebody else. When I have to stop and justify it and say, well, they shouldn't have done this, or they shouldn't, I was probably or wrong in doing whatever it was I said. Having to justify what you said after it's been said is a bad sign that perhaps what you said wasn't true or accurate, wasn't nice or kind to another human being. You know, the people we love the most are the people we hurt the most. That's just the way it is in life. We're closest to the people that we love, the people that know us the most intimately. And I'm talking about, like, you know, my family knows my shortcomings, they know all my weaknesses. We're very close in that way. I don't have to be guarded. I can completely be myself with them. I don't have to act a certain way or anything. But unfortunately, that means that when I'm tired and fearful or angry, you know, things come out, and to the people that we love and trust the most are the people we say the most hurtful things to in our lives, and vice versa. I just struggle, and I start in a small way there to try to supersede or transcend those things that I might say. But the time to think about all this is before you say it. I used to tell the kids, the time to feel guilty about something is before you do something bad. Before you do something that you're going to regret later. That's what guilt was invented for. It's to prevent you from doing something that you know is going to turn out badly. So, because I used to say, well, you know, feeling bad after you've done it, you know, based on an impulse, is not when you should feel bad. When you should feel bad is prior to doing it, so that you don't do whatever the act is or say whatever the mean thing is that you're going to say. You know, really, I'm talking about tolerance, acceptance. You know, people like to use these words, and it's funny because I think a lot of times, and I'm included in this category, the people that use these words like tolerance, acceptance, I hear diversity used a lot, are probably the least tolerant, the least accepting, the least diverse people, especially when they're saying, I'm doing this in the name of tolerance, or I'm doing this in the name of diversity or something. You know, it's just a human trait, human nature. I try to practice acceptance, and sometimes I'm off to the races with my negative thinking. It's just an impulse based on the id, like I was saying. It's impulsive behavior where that fear pops up, boom, and you don't know what to do about it. You know, you just don't know what to do about it. It's just, you're just reacting and you're going off. Luckily, when I just get a moment where the energy just pauses for just a moment, that's an opening to get in there and think higher and say, wait a minute, whoa, what's going on here? What is this based on? So I try to practice that. Does that mean that how long that initial burst of impulse and fear varies, because it depends on what level it's at. If you know what I'm saying. It depends on what level and how long it takes for that energy to go whew. I've read books by other people. They talk about, you know, when that energy wells up inside you, when you feel that fear and everything like that, if you can just pause and just let it like flow out and go away before you buy right into it and feed it and, you know, help it explode or whatever it is. I'm not very good at these words and explaining what my concepts are and what I'm thinking about, but my intention with this is to know that we're all struggling together. None of us are perfect. To practice acceptance of each other, try to recognize when you're pulling into some kind of strong identification with a group. You know, we have a tendency to join groups that think like us to validate our identification. It always needs validation, always. We tend to join groups, it might be our faith-based religion or a specific church, or it could be political affiliation, or some kind of association that believes in some cause, that we identify with. Those are all great things as long as you're not trying to make the people that aren't in your little group an enemy or wrong. And that's what leads up to wars. And again, ideology, idealism. Idealism is funny because I think if you look up the definition to that, it says that most of the time the ideals that people are trying to identify with or project or hold other people to are not based in reality. And I think we all do that. We all have standards that are based on our identity and our ideals, again, beginning with idealism. We all have ideals that we ourselves can't even live up to. But we want to hold everybody else to those standards. And I'm talking for myself. People always say, well, they're a hypocrite. You know what? We're all hypocrites. We all have done things that we felt that other people shouldn't do. Or we haven't done things that we felt that other people should do. What I'm trying to say is, if you're identifying really strongly with something, try to just stop and just when you're with someone and that little alarm's going off in your head that you're wrong, whatever, just stop that and just accept what they're saying is what they believe or what. And one of the greatest philosophers in time, I think it was one of the Eastern philosophers. I don't know whether it was Lao Tzu or one of them. I can't remember where I read it. But when people would tell him something that it wasn't true, it might be even a lie from a person, or all he would ever say is that so? Oh, is that so? And it was wonderful. I mean, and he just would accept everything that they said, even though he knew it wasn't right. And what would happen, because he didn't resist it, it would just, over time, work itself out. And that's a thing that I'm learning right now is, over time, how things, if you don't do anything about a particular situation, it a lot of times works itself out without your involvement. But it's really hard sometimes to step back and know when to get involved and when not to get involved, or when to take a break and stop doing anything particularly. And it might work itself out. It takes a lot of years to learn that stuff, unfortunately. Some people have it naturally, that kind of wisdom. It didn't come from me naturally. I have to learn everything the hard way, it seems like. So I think it's really important for all of us to practice self-examination, a way to center and accept others, what they say and what they do, without completely reacting based on a primal fear or trying to make them wrong. Another good analogy for me was, in order for us to sharpen our sword, we need to have a stone to hit it against, or to, and that's what other people are, and that's what other groups are, that we identify with a group and we need one to be wrong so that we can be right. So you need that opposing force to justify and validate your ego and your importance and why you're right and they're wrong and so forth. Do I do all these things that I'm talking about? All the bad things? Yes. All the good things? Yes. I do them all. I suffer just like every other human being. What I want to say, disorders maybe, mentally, going through all of the things that everybody feels, the same emotional things. Yes, I do all those things. So keep practicing. Realize that today is a start over day, and you don't have to be the way you were yesterday. If you do end up falling into yesterday's behavior or falling into something, you couldn't control it, okay, fine, get over it, forgive yourself, it's okay. And just start clean again. Because like I said, none of us are perfect. We all stumble and fall and make mistakes. It's okay. It's part of the learning progress, and it is progress. Think of it as that. Hey, I progressed. I spent like 10 minutes actually accepting today, or not upset about something, or whatever it is, you know. Keep tuning in. Today's just a little talk about our identity and how strong it is in human beings, and just if you know about it, if you understand that that's the way what your identity is, and what you're identifying with, and you don't have to protect it, then I think we could all get along a lot better in this world. You know, there's, like I said, there's too much information that flows in all the time. These kids today, my kids and grandkids, their faces in their phone all the time. And I gotta admit, you know, mine is, I run a business, and I had to get on digital media as a form of advertising. There's no more like let your fingers do the walking through the yellow pages anymore. It's all digital. You know, you pick up your phone and say, hey, I need a painter, and it fills up the thing. So I got to be on that list if I want to get work. And so I have to participate in all of this digital media. And when people send me inquiries, it goes through my website or goes through Google or whatever, and comes into my phone. A lot of people want immediate responses through their phone. It's the kind of world that we live in now, and I have to practice acceptance of that. It's not the way I was formed. I'm old. It's not something that I really like to do. The important thing is, I hope it helps let you know that you're not alone in this way you think, feel, or act, that we're all connected. As human beings, we are all connected. And I want to make sure that that comes across. We need to look at each other as kindred spirits, as that we are related to each other. Whether we agree on ideological issues or not, we are all related to each other. And that's really what I'm all about, is I'm trying to establish that connection. I want other people to see that connection. I try to, with everyone that I encounter throughout the day. We eat where we get fed. So whatever our identification is and our ego is, we're going to go where we can feed that. That's natural, because we're hungry for a particular thing on the menu. So we're going to go and find that to identify with. Keep that in mind, and when you have that in mind, then it's easier to kind of accept things at the moment, and not to take offense all the time at what other people tell us or what they're saying, and not to identify so strongly with what we believe. In my case, what I'm saying is not to identify so strongly with what I believe. Thanks for tuning in. Like if you can, subscribe to my channel. It helps a lot. And I appreciate all of you. Have a great week.